So hi, welcome. My name's Jen. This is the second episode of my knitting podcast, but it has been a hot minute, so we're basically starting over from scratch again today. Hello, welcome. I am the maker behind Jen Beams Makes over on Instagram, and I'll make sure that's down the bottom somewhere when I put this up. I am predominantly a knitter based in the southwest of England, and I just wanted to do this podcast just to talk about some of my recent and favourite makes, what my plans are for the future in terms of my crafting, and hopefully get some inspiration from everybody else on the internet and give a little bit of inspiration back to other knitters who are looking for new projects. So grab yourself a drink and your current work in progress, and we will have a little chat about all things woolly. So I'll just pop this down so that I can show you what I'm wearing. And this is an absolute favourite sweater of mine, and this is the first sweater by Lizzie of Hive Knits. This is a lovely raglan construction top-down sweater with a little bit of neck back shaping and these absolutely gorgeous squishy half fisherman rib sleeves, which are a sort of balloon shape. There is no shaping in the sleeve itself. Anything that you see there is because it could probably do with another block. I've worn it a few times now. I have knitted in this lovely teal colour, which is Filcolana Arvetta held together with Drops Kid Silk in a variety of greeny teal colours, of which I have lost all the ball bands now. I absolutely love this sweater. It was a joy to make, and it is an absolute favourite to wear now. If you haven't made it yet or haven't seen it yet, what on earth are you thinking? Get over to Lizzie on Hive Knits and check it out. I do have one other Hive Knits project to talk about as a finished object. So let's dive straight into that one. This is a super test knit that I have just completed for Hive Knits, and this is going to look somewhat familiar. And this is the first cardigan, which is a very similar sibling, if you will, of the first sweater. This is the first cardigan, and as you can see, we still have the lovely squishy warm half fisherman's rib sleeves, and this time on a stockinette body with a lovely v-neck cardigan, and it also has a really lovely finishing touch of a double knit button band, which just so subtly finishes the edge. I mean, you can barely see where it is compared with the body there. I'll try and get a little bit closer to get it more in focus for you, but there is nothing to see there. And on the inside, you just have that lovely stockinette effect from the double knitting of the button band. It also gives the buttons a little bit more heft in the fabric, so that they're not going to pull out of shape and leave those little nipples in the fabric where the buttons hang. These are just some buttons that I had in my Notions stash, which are little ceramic buttons with lovely little flowers on. Each one's a different colour, but they're all in the same sort of tonal family, and I think they finish it off really nicely. The cardigan that I have made is in the Filcolana Arvetta again, and I have paired it this time with Drops Alpaca Silk, which is a little bit thicker than the mohair and a little bit warmer, and it's given a bit more of a structured fabric. And I think the two having that difference to them is really nice. I think if I was to do another cardigan, which I may well do it in the end, I wear more cardigans than I do sweaters, then that would potentially be an option that I'd take up next time round. Not that I dislike the alpaca, but just for a variation, for something a little bit different again. I love both fabrics, and I think the first cardigan is an absolutely beautiful classic piece that will have a welcome place in my wardrobe for many years to come. And I recommend getting over onto Hive Knits and keeping an eye out for when it gets released as a full-fledged pattern. I understand that's going to be fairly soon, so get on over there. I haven't just been fangirling over at Hive Knits. I have been making some other things as well, which, you know, is quite a thing to say, given that life does actually get in the way as well. I have made headway, first of all, on a mashup of two patterns. I hesitate to say I've designed this myself, although I have kind of bundled some other patterns together. This is a hat that I've made for a Secret Santa coming up, and you may notice some rather familiar features about it. This is made from two yarns from a friend of mine, the lovely Pamela over at Otter and Papoose Yarns. She sells her yarns on Etsy, and you can go and check her out there. This is both a 4-ply sock blend yarn, 75% merino, 25% nylon, and a 25-75 mohair silk blend, held together both in the same colourway, which is Papoose's Birthday Party. And hopefully you can see that the fuzz on this hat is absolutely fantastic. It is going to be a super warm accessory, and I really wish I was keeping it. I mashed up two patterns. First of all, I took the stitch pattern from the brim from Rebecca of the Crayabea, her sweater pattern for the Cargill sweater, and this is the dip stitch pattern from there, and I have plugged that in to the brim of the Oslo Hat mohair edition from Petit Knit, and did the decreases in stockinette exactly as that pattern suggests. I've got hat hair now, never mind. And I think the two together with these lovely yarns has worked an absolute treat. I'm hoping I have enough of each left to make myself another hat, but we will see. And Pamela, if you're watching, I might be back soon. So let's see how we get on with that. As I've said, life has been getting in the way a little bit in terms of knitting things, and certainly at the moment I've got a few things on the go that I'm struggling a little bit to make a first string work in progress from. I have actually dug out a couple of old works in progress to give a little bit of a boost to since I finished my first cardigan, having come to that after a couple of completed sweaters altogether, and between working in the NHS and my children being a little bit poorly as we run into December, it's just all been a bit busy, and starting another new big project just didn't seem like a really good option at the moment. So I have three things as works in progress that I'd like to discuss today. And I don't know, tell me in the comments, are you somebody who has many things on the go at a time, or do you think more that you will finish one project and then move on to the next and move on to the next? And you might not even have a stash. I mean, work one project at a time. I can't work like that. I always need something that's going to be a little bit straightforward, that I can do when I'm stressed or when I'm watching a film in the dark, but then something with a little bit more bite to it when I've got the energy and the space to create something a little bit more involved. But anyway, let me know what you do. I think there are no knitting police, obviously, and it's always nice to see how different people approach things. So just have a quick sip of my drink, and we'll talk about some other bits and pieces. So my current sweater on the needles is actually a present for my partner Matthew, and this is the Korshaven Sweater Man pattern, which I am knitting up in this glorious blue. It actually, on the camera, it looks very, very similar in colour to my first sweater. It's not, it's much more blue and I'm much more green. Oh, excuse me, big sneeze, hide behind a sweater. And hopefully you can tell the difference. I think they look very, very similar on the viewfinder, but we will see in the editing. So this is, as I say, for my partner. It is the first time I've knit a man-sized sweater, and it's taken ages because it's big. It is this glorious basket weave pattern, which looks a lot more complicated than actually it was. It's all done with knits and purls with some yarn over increases and directional decreases to give the little dips between each basket. There are no cables in here, even though it looks like there's stitches passing under and over stitches all over the place. As you can see, I have finished the collar. I have knit the body and one sleeve, and well, I think he'll be all right with a cold arm. But the plan is to finish that and get that blocked and ready to go over the next couple of weeks. It shouldn't take that long. I think the first sleeve took me around about a week to do. It does have decreases down the sleeve. It's not as straightforward, just knit down the arm as the first sweater was, with no decreases for the balloon sleeve. But this one is a little bit more involved and will take just a little bit more concentration, which I've just not had the space for over the last couple of days. But this is lurking and ready to come back out. So what have I been doing? This is what I should have been doing. What have I been doing? So I have been mainly working on this little monster. Now this is a very long-term work in progress. I do not expect that this will be the last time I bring it up on this channel, because it's going to take me a while. It already has taken me a while. This is a scrapgam project that I pull out whenever my bag of sock weight scraps gets too big, and I knit hexagons. It is a modular pattern where you pick up the stitches around the edge of one hexagon to join in the next one, and go round and round and round, and slowly and surely it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more mad with all the different colours and memories. This yarn here was the very first pair of socks I ever made when I was living in Christchurch, New Zealand. So, you know, there's little memories in there, which is always lovely. There are other yarns that I bought as little minis just to add specifically to this. There are other things that I bought and didn't end up using for the project that I bought them for, and have ended up in this. This lovely mousy brown is one of those. The cream was mittens. There are all of these, and yet somehow, despite the fact that none of these yarns match each other, they all look completely different. They are all roughly a 4-ply weight and are gelling together in this completely crazy blanket, which just sort of slowly morphs bigger and bigger as time goes on. At some point I will have to work out how I'm going to finish it, but that day is not today. I am aiming to get it around about 21 hexagons across and up and down into a rectangle so that it can be bedspread sized. At the moment I am a vague hexagon shape because I'm just going round and round and round, and it is about 14 across in most directions, 13 in some. And because of that, I've not really thought about how I'm going to do the edges. I know I don't want them to be frilly like they are at the moment because they curl. This is all done in stockinette. It's flat because it's stockinette going in lots of different directions. But the edges, if I grab an edge here, I can show you. The edges just curl and twirl and bag up. So it will need a border on it. Which will probably be in garter stitch or double knitting, similar to the first cardigan button band. However, before I get there, it needs to be a straight edge, and I am thinking half hexagons will be fairly straightforward because I can just cut the pattern that I'm doing in half and knit it backwards and forwards on the flat. The little partial hexagons that I will get on the other edge, which will just go from point to point, are going to require a little bit more maths, and I think at some stage I'm going to have to go and grab some graph paper and actually just draw it out. I've got a funny feeling it's going to involve German short rows, but we will work on that and on at some stage. I have no rush. This has taken quite some time so far, if only by means of accumulating the amount of yarn that is necessary to make something this nuts and this large. So there's no rush. I can think about it. That can stew in the back of the brain and come together as we go along. So that is a definite work in progress. That is under no illusions of becoming a finished object anytime soon. Next up, I have a work in progress that frankly really should have been finished by now. It is the 1st of December 2022 as I am filming this today, and the yarn that is involved in this project is yarn that I got for my yarn advent calendar last year. Okay, I've just lost a couple of stitches off the end there, but that's fine. We will find those in a moment. So this is the beginnings of the laminar cowl and wrap, and I'm going to make an infinity scarf version of it, which is why the cast on edge is provisional and on a cable. So that I can just grab those stitches to graft together at the end. And this is a lovely pattern for an advent because it is individual little repeats with a garter band between. So I have 6 of these little individual sections so far, and if I hold it a little bit closer you can see it is a fairly straightforward lace repeat, and each section is basically the same. Technically there are 2 different patterns. That is all about making sure that the ends line up because it is on a slant. You have a decrease at this edge and an increase at that edge, so I am knitting a parallelogram. When it is completed, obviously it will be a loop and it will be on the squint. I will probably block it before I graft it and then just spot block that section over the ironing board at the end, leaving the rest hanging. That is because I want that lovely flat look, but with the parallelogram being actually an infinite put put my teeth back in, an infinite parallelogram, so that the whole thing just turns into a nice long scarf that you can wrap around your neck a couple of times and then snuggle down into on a cold morning. So they are my current works in progress. They are all a little bit mad at the moment. In terms of acquisitions, I don't really have any to talk about today, but I do. I am on a little yarn trip on Saturday, and I am going to Flock Southwest over in Frenchay in Bristol with some of the girls from my knit night, the Gloucester Road Creatives. We are a very diverse group of knitters and crocheters and other craftivists who meet in the pub on a Wednesday night, and a subgroup of us are heading over to Flock. This is a yarn festival day run by Mr. B Bird Street Yarns, who again you can check out on Instagram, and I will label up. And I've never been before, so I'm very excited about going. Some of the other ladies I'm going with have been before and absolutely rave about the day, as well as the yarns themselves. I have seen the yarns themselves and they're beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I may not have any acquisitions to talk to you about today, but I'm getting really excited about going and choosing some new ones, and all the yarn planning that can come with that over the weekend. And hopefully we will have some lovely things to show you in my next episode from that point of view. In terms of yarny plans over the next 12 months, I think before I really get there, Advent is always a looking forwards type of month, but I think it's really useful to look backwards as well and think, well, what have I made? What have I achieved with my hobbies over the last year? And I think ultimately really quite a lot. I have started using my Instagram a lot more and engaging with that creative space. I have made a selection of sweaters and other garments, both for myself and my family. I am making an effort to buy yarn for projects, or at least with projects in mind, rather than stashing oddballs of this and that because they were pretty in the yarn store, which I think is a common issue with a lot of us who are into yarn crafts. But I am making a concerted effort to try to avoid getting too little of a special yarn to do what I want to do with it, which involves a bit more planning. And also, although my family might not completely agree, I am trying to minimise the amount of stashed yarn around the place and use things that I have rather than buying new repeatedly. It does mean that it's out a little bit more, so they might think there's more of it, but it's more that it's more accessible so that I can see what's going on. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. I think I've achieved that. I have made baby sweaters for my nephew. I've made jumpers for my children. Sweater for my partner is almost finished. I've managed the first sweater and cardigan, the souffle tee, which I think featured in my last episode, which is beautiful. That one is from the Knitting Pickle. I have also knit a sweater number 18, which I haven't shown you yet. It is sitting right here. It is a bit unblocked and overworn at present, but you can have a little look at it. This is probably my go-to sweater for slopping around the house in at the moment, because it is cozy and comfy and warm. And it has replaced my central heating in many ways. So this is knit from a hand-dyed alpaca silk held together with a white DK and giving this beautiful confetti speckle effect, which I'll try and hold a little closer for you. And it goes with everything. It is super warm, it's super soft, and it is in desperate need of a block because, as you can see, it's all kind of bagged up, whereas a bit of blocking will make it look a little bit more professional. I have really loved knitting this year and creating. I've done that mainly by following patterns that I have purchased from various places. I have also had a little go at test knitting, which I've really enjoyed. It is probably not for me repeatedly and regularly, although it is nice to be kept on task. I am not the best knitter to a schedule, and I think in general I am better getting a pattern and doing it to my own timetable. I have I've pushed myself in certain ways. I've done bits of colour work, I've done bits of new to me patterns, new to me techniques, particularly in terms of cast-ons and bind-offs this year that I haven't done previously. And I have found myself a lovely new knitting group. So that's where I am at the end of 22. Where do I see myself going with my knitting forwards into 23? Well, actually, more of the same. I don't want to be a designer at the moment. Ideas do come, and I will continue to adapt and change and hack patterns to my own ends, to my own measurements, to my own ease, to my own stitch patterns thrown in. But I don't aspire to sell those. I think that is something that I am better to leave to those who are truly showing an aptitude for it and have the time to give it that it deserves. Especially when we talk about things like size inclusive patterns and patterns that have support available for different ability levels of knitter. I think the amount of work that goes into that in the design process is massive, and it's something that I don't particularly want to get involved in at the moment. What I do want to do is continue to support new and small independent designers and independent small yarn businesses and local materials. I think that there is an awful lot of beautiful yarn from everywhere in the world, and the idea that you have to get this particular yarn for this particular pattern that happens to come from this country is probably unnecessary. I have always really enjoyed mixing and matching and putting different things in different places, and I think I will carry on extending myself in that way, looking at local yarns, local dyers, and seeing what the southwest of England has to offer in terms of yarn suppliers, and also what I can make myself. I have spun a little in the past. I would really like to start doing that again as time goes on. It involves a little bit more space and organisation, so that may just be on the back burner for a few more months, but hopefully the wheel will come out at some point during 23, and we will see what we can get making there. Anyway, it has been absolutely lovely chatting and showing off some of my yarny adventures today. I hope you've enjoyed it. The whole YouTube channel thing is still very much a work in progress. I am still not entirely comfortable with how the whole filming setup goes, and if you could see where you're sitting on the big pile of stuff that's holding you up right now, you would probably laugh at me from a YouTubey sort of perspective. But if it works, it works, and hopefully I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me.